It was supposed to be a normal afternoon, a quick stop at a car dealership. But what happened next would leave the entire showroom in stunned silence. Dr. Daniela just wanted a car. She walked in, cash ready, excited to leave with a new set of wheels. But the salesman? He took one look at her and decided she didn't belong. Daniela wasn't just any customer. She was a successful surgeon. She had spent years saving for this moment. But the minute she stepped inside, she felt it. The stares, the whispers. Then came the salesman, a middle-aged man with a tight smile and colder eyes. "Can I help you?" His tone was clipped, dismissive. She told him exactly what she wanted. A brand new black BMW, fully loaded, paid in full. That should have been an easy sale, right? Wrong. He smirked. "You sure you can afford that?" Daniela kept her cool. "Yes, I'd like to see the vehicle." He barely hid his skepticism. Instead of taking her to the showroom, he handed her a brochure. "We have more affordable options over here." Her patience thinned. I said, "I want to see the black BMW." The salesman sighed, walking her over at a snail's pace. He didn't even bother unlocking the doors. "You can look through the window." That was it. Daniela pulled out her phone, started recording. "Are you refusing to show me the car?" He laughed. "Lady, this isn't a rental lot." Daniela wasn't backing down. She demanded a test drive. His smirk dropped. "Policy says we need proof of funds first." That was a lie. She had bought cars before. No dealership asks for bank statements before a test drive. She pulled out her cashier's check. "Will this do?" His face twitched. "I still need to verify it. You know, fraud happens." Fraud? Daniela had enough. "Get me your manager." "Oh, I'll get someone," he sneered. 5 minutes later, 2 cops stormed in. Daniela barely had time to react before they were in her face. "Ma'am, we got a report about suspicious activity." Her stomach dropped. "Suspicious? I'm trying to buy a car." The officers exchanged a look. One placed a hand on his gun. "We need to see some ID." She exhaled slowly, reaching into her purse. And when she pulled it out, the room changed. Because in her hand wasn't just an ID. It was an FBI badge. Silence. The officers blinked. The salesman. He turned pale. Daniela tilted her head. "Now let me get this straight. You refused to show me the car, accused me of fraud, and called the cops. All because what? You assumed I was a criminal?" The officers took a step back. We were just responding to a call." Her voice was ice. "A false report. That's a federal offense." The salesman stammered, It was a misunderstanding." Daniela crossed her arms. "Oh, we'll clear that up. Right after I file a formal complaint." The dealership manager ran out, sweating. "Dr. Carter, please, let's work something out." Too late. Daniela looked straight at the cops. "I'd like to report a crime." The officers sighed. The salesman swallowed hard. And then Daniela smiled. "I hope you have a good lawyer." As the police hesitated, Daniela took out her phone. "Since you were so worried about fraud, let's check some records." She tapped a few buttons. Moments later, her face hardened. "Interesting. Your dealership has had 3 discrimination complaints this year, and your name," she pointed at the salesman, "has come up in 2 of them. Care to explain?" The salesman stammered. Those were misunderstandings." The officers exchanged a glance. One of them stepped forward. "Ma'am, are you filing a report?" Daniela nodded. Yes. But not just for discrimination, this man knowingly filed a false police report. That's a felony. The manager's face turned ashen. Please, we can resolve this. But Daniela wasn't done. I also just sent a complaint to the state licensing board. If they find out you have a pattern of racial profiling, your dealership could lose its license. The officers took down her statement. The salesman looked ready to pass out. As Daniela turned to leave, the officer who had been gripping his gun sighed. Dr. Carter, I'm sorry. She met his eyes. Make sure this doesn't happen to the next black woman who walks in here. She stepped outside, the dealership now in chaos behind her. Her phone buzzed. A text from a federal colleague. You just took down a major case. Turns out, this dealership has been under investigation for fraud and racial discrimination for years. You want in? Daniela smiled. Absolutely. The morning after her explosive visit to the dealership, Dr. Daniela Carter sat at her kitchen table, sipping on a cup of coffee. The chaos from yesterday still echoed in her mind. Her calm demeanor while facing down the crooked salesman, the eerie silence when she revealed her FBI badge, and the relief when the police officers backed down. But the lingering thought, the one that kept her awake last night, was the text she had received from her colleague. You just took down a major case. Turns out this dealership has been under investigation for fraud and racial discrimination for years. You want in? Her fingers hovered over her phone. A major case? The dealership was under investigation for years. She had been in the medical field for so long, focused on saving lives, that she hadn't thought about how deeply ingrained systemic issues like racial profiling and fraud ran in other industries. But now, it seemed, she had stumbled onto something much bigger than just a bad experience at a car dealership. She quickly replied, Count me in. The next few hours passed in a blur. Daniela didn't have to wait long for her colleague to respond. The text came through quickly with a few details about the ongoing investigation. We've been tracking this dealership for months. They've been involved in money laundering, fake car titles, and fraudulent loans. The racial profiling? That's just the tip of the iceberg. They've targeted minority customers for years, all while their corporate office looks the other way. We could really use your help. Can you come down to the office? Daniela knew what she had to do. At the FBI's local office, Daniela met with her colleague, Special Agent James Miller, a man in his early 40s with graying hair and a sharp, focused demeanor. The office was bustling with activity, phones ringing, agents rushing in and out, but Daniela felt the weight of the moment. This was no longer just about one man's bigoted behavior at a dealership. This was about uncovering a network of corruption, fraud, and discrimination that had been festering for far too long. Glad you could make it, James said, shaking her hand. We've got a lot of work to do, but I'm glad we have you on this. The dealership you tangled with? Their entire operation is a facade. On the surface, they seem like a reputable business, but underneath, it's a nightmare. James pulled out a folder from his desk and laid it out in front of Daniela. The file was thick, overflowing with documents, photos, and reports. Here's what we know, he began. This dealership has been laundering money for years, with ties to several high-ranking officials. They've been using fake car titles to disguise stolen vehicles and selling them as legitimate. But the real kicker? The racial profiling and fraudulent financing. Daniela flipped through the file, her eyes scanning quickly. She paused on a photo of a car dealership, taken from a distance, showing the lot filled with expensive cars. But the photograph was marked with a series of notes. Fraudulent paperwork? She asked, looking up from the file. How do you know for sure? James nodded. We've been tracing vehicle registration data. The titles don't match the VIN numbers. And the financing. They've been overcharging people, especially minorities, inflating loan amounts to make a larger profit. It's a practice that's been going on for at least 5 years. We've already got several former employees willing to testify. Daniela leaned back in her chair, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. The world she had been a part of, saving lives and serving her community, was far different from the world of fraud, manipulation, and racism that she was now stepping into. "So, what's our next move?" Daniela asked. James' expression turned serious. "The next step is to gather more evidence. We've already got enough to file for a search warrant, but we need someone on the inside. And that's where you come in." Daniela's eyebrows furrowed. "Me? What do you mean?" "We need someone who can go undercover," James said, pulling out another folder. "We have a contact inside the dealership who has been feeding us information. But we need you to go in, pretend you're a customer again, and gather more concrete evidence. Your experience yesterday, it was perfect. You know exactly how they'll treat you." Daniela thought for a moment. She had been in high-stakes situations before, but this was different. She was about to infiltrate a criminal organization. She wasn't sure what was more unsettling: the thought of going back into that dealership or the idea of pretending to be just another wealthy customer. Still, the mission was clear. Daniela had been trained to think fast and act under pressure. She had the skills for this. "All right," she said, setting the file down. "I'm in. What's the plan?" 2 days later, Daniela was back at the dealership. It felt surreal, like stepping into an alternate universe. The showroom was still as pristine as she remembered, but this time, the air felt heavier. She wasn't just a doctor shopping for a new car. She was a part of something much larger. Her FBI training kicked in, the focus sharp, the adrenaline flowing. She was greeted by a different salesman this time, a younger man with a name tag that read, Kevin. He smiled politely, but his eyes flickered with curiosity as he took in Daniela's appearance. She was dressed casually today. Jeans, a simple top, her hair pulled back into a ponytail, but she still carried herself with an air of confidence. "Good afternoon, ma'am," Kevin said. "How can I assist you today?" "I'm interested in the BMW," Daniela said, adopting the same calm tone she had used before. She pulled out a brochure from her bag, just like she had the other day, and slid it across the counter. "The fully loaded black model." Kevin's smile faltered, but only for a second. "Ah, yes. The 2023 model. A fine choice. Let me show you the vehicle." Daniela followed Kevin, watching carefully for any signs of resistance. He led her to the same black BMW she had seen last time. Only this time, he unlocked the doors without hesitation. He wasn't as dismissive as the last salesman, but there was still an air of wariness about him, like he was trying to gauge her reaction. As she slid into the driver's seat, the car's luxurious interior enveloped her. She ran her fingers over the leather seats, the smooth dashboard, and the sleek touchscreen interface. "Is there something you'd like to know about the vehicle?" Kevin asked, his tone slightly more relaxed now. Daniela glanced up at him, keeping her expression neutral. "I want to take it for a test drive." Kevin hesitated for a moment, his gaze flickering toward the manager's office. She could tell he was debating whether or not to comply. "Of course," he said after a beat. "I'll just need to get the paperwork." As he walked away, Daniela's mind was already racing. She wasn't just going to buy a car today. She was going to use this moment to dig deeper. She had a feeling that Kevin wasn't as clean as he seemed. And if there was one thing Daniela knew from years of practice, it was how to spot a lie. But there was more at stake now. This wasn't just about exposing a corrupt dealership. It was about shining a light on a network of systemic discrimination and fraud that had been allowed to thrive for far too long. As Kevin returned with the paperwork, Daniela smiled inwardly. She wasn't just a customer anymore. She was an agent on a mission, and she wasn't leaving without the truth. The moment Kevin returned with the paperwork, Daniela knew this was her window. She took the documents he handed her, pretending to study them as she spoke with practiced ease. "I appreciate your patience," she said, glancing over the fine print. "But before we move forward, I'd like to take the car for a spin. I assume that's no problem?" Kevin smiled, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "No, not at all. Let me just get the manager's approval and we can go right ahead." As he turned to walk toward the manager's office, Daniela took a deep breath. Her instincts were telling her that something was off. He was being too accommodating. Was he nervous because he knew who she was? Or was there something deeper behind his hesitation? She kept a careful watch on Kevin as he approached the manager. Her mind raced through all the intel James had given her, especially the tidbits about how the dealership had a history of pushing inflated loans on minorities, sometimes requiring hefty down payments or offering ridiculous terms that were designed to fail. This dealership wasn't just a place where people got bad deals. It was an institution of exploitation. When Kevin returned, his demeanor had shifted slightly. He handed her the keys with a forced smile. "It's all set." The manager said to go ahead. Daniela nodded and followed him out of the showroom to the car. As she slid behind the wheel of the BMW once again, she tried to calm her nerves. The hum of the engine felt different now. Not just a smooth, sleek machine, but a means to uncover a truth she could no longer ignore. She drove carefully out of the lot, Kevin in the passenger seat giving her directions like a chauffeur. But instead of following the usual route, Daniela took a hard turn into a nearby industrial area. Her heart was steady, but her mind was racing. Ma'am?" Kevin's voice was hesitant, his body stiffening in the seat next to her. "This isn't the usual route." Daniela glanced over at him, her expression serene. "Oh, I thought I'd take it for a test on some of the less crowded roads. Get a real feel for the handling." He hesitated, but didn't press further. His unease was obvious now, and that gave her a quiet sense of satisfaction. She was on the right track. As they made a few turns into an alleyway, Daniela slowed the car, parking in an area that gave her a clear view of the back of the dealership. She took a moment to let Kevin stew in his own confusion. Then, casually, she turned to him. "Kevin, there's something I don't understand," she said, her voice calm but laced with a certain edge. "You guys have been running these deals for a long time, haven't you?" Kevin blinked, caught off guard by her sudden shift in tone. What do you mean?" "You know," Daniela said, leaning forward just slightly. "I did a little digging before I came in. I know about the fraudulent loans, the stolen titles, and the discrimination complaints you've been involved in." She let the words hang in the air between them, watching his reaction closely. Kevin's eyes widened, his pulse visibly quickening. He reached for his phone, but Daniela was faster. Her hand shot out, placing her phone in his view. "I've been recording this entire interaction," she said, her voice as steady as steel. "I'm sure you're aware that tampering with evidence, conspiracy, and racial profiling are all federal offenses, Kevin. I don't think you want to be on the wrong side of that, do you?" Kevin froze. His hand hovered above the phone, and Daniela could practically see the wheels turning in his head. She didn't need to press him any further. The truth was starting to crack through his carefully maintained composure. I don't know what you're talking about," Kevin stammered, his voice shaking now. "This is all just business as usual. There's no need for—" Daniela cut him off, her tone crisp. "No need for what?" Fraud? Discrimination? Kevin, you're just a small piece of this. The managers, the owners, they're all involved, and I know exactly what's been going on. She could see the color drain from his face as the enormity of the situation hit him. You can't just... He began to protest, but Daniela raised her hand, silencing him. You're not getting away with this, she said. I've already sent everything I've gathered to my colleague at the FBI. They'll be here soon, and they'll be asking you questions. Lots of them. Before he could respond, Daniela got out of the car, motioning for him to follow. She was confident now, walking with a calm authority that left no room for doubt. They walked back toward the dealership, where the manager, a man named George, was standing by the front door. Kevin, Daniela called out, her voice crisp. You might want to let your boss know that everything is about to go down. His dealership, it's under investigation. The manager's expression shifted from one of routine indifference to panic when he saw Daniela approaching, Kevin trailing behind her with a visibly pale face. Dr. Carter, George said, his voice tight. I didn't expect you back so soon. Funny how life works, Daniela said coolly, walking right past him toward the main office. I just came back to make sure everything's on the up and up. And guess what? I found some things that aren't exactly legal. George's face twitched. What are you talking about? Before he could protest any further, Daniela pulled her phone from her bag. This is a recording of the conversation I just had with your sales team, she said, holding the phone up for him to see. I've been recording since I got here. Everything. Including the part where you knowingly lied to me, accused me of fraud, and called the police on a false report. George's eyes widened, his mind trying to process the situation. His hand instinctively moved to his pocket, and Daniela saw the panic rising. Do you really think you're going to walk away from this? Daniela asked. She could feel the weight of the moment, but there was no hesitation in her voice. You're involved in a criminal operation, George. The FBI has been watching your every move, and it's only a matter of time before the whole thing unravels. She could see the moment he realized the jig was up. His face paled even further, and his eyes flickered nervously to the back office, where the company's files and financial records were kept. What do you want? He demanded, his voice low. We can settle this. I can... No, Daniela interrupted. There's nothing to settle. You're done. I'm not just a disgruntled customer. I'm an agent, and I'm bringing everything I've gathered straight to the authorities, and when they come for you, it's not going to be pretty. With one last look of disgust at George, Daniela turned and walked out of the dealership. Her heart was racing, but there was a sense of relief now too. She had done what needed to be done. As she got into her car, she tapped out a quick message to James. It's done. I've got everything. Send the team in. Moments later, her phone buzzed with a reply. We're on our way. You just made our job a lot easier. Great work, Daniela. Daniela leaned back in the driver's seat and exhaled slowly, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. The fight wasn't over, but today she had won. And the dealership? They would never get away with it again. She'd made sure of that.